Welcome, everybody, to our semifinal number 2 of the 2019 Magic Online Championship. Cedric Phillips, Patrick Sullivan, getting ready to settle in, buckle down here for that semifinal 2. Figure out who the winner of this match is going to be to play against Logan Nettles in the finals of the 2019 Magic Online Championship. Matti Kuisma's on the bottom, Michael Jacob up top. It's team control against Selesnya Heliod Company. And you can already see some very powerful blue cards in the hands of Matti Kuisma with 2 copies of Archmage Charm, a Jace the Mind Sculptor, and a Cryptic Command.
I mean, the game is going to be fundamentally our Matti Kuisma's, efficient 2-for-1s and cards that kind of work no matter what, going to be able to break up Michael's much more powerful, but, moving part style strategy here.
For Jacob, Giver of Runes, Auriok Champion, Heliod Sun Crown, and just a couple of lands. You saw him kick things off by sacrificing that Misty Rainforest, falling down to 19 for a basic forest. Utopia Sprawl is on there, naming white. So I would say pretty average draws here for both players. Nothing too crazy going on. It's a good thing here for Kuisma that he is on the play with these copies of Archmage Charm. But Archmage Charm, its flexibility is its power. 3 modes on that card. All the modes are pretty good. It is a little bit difficult to cast with triple blue, but this deck seems to manage it just fine.
Yeah, it's not that hard to set up, and Archmage's Charm is sort of a secondary piece to recur with Mystic Sanctuary if you don't happen to draw a Cryptic Command.
Heliod Sun Crowned is where Darkest Mage will go on turn number 2. And we know how easy it is to actually get this combo online with Heliod in combination with either Spike Weaver or Walking Ballista. It's not the hardest thing to do. Now, it can be a little bit difficult through counter magic, perhaps, but just with regards to goldfishing, and this deck has a lot of redundant ways to get to that combo.
From MJ's perspective, what you would like to do is sort of put Matti in a spot where he has to put the shields down. And the best avenue to do that is to draw a copy of Collected Company. And you can collect a company at the end on his end step. Presumably that's worth fighting over, and then you can combo out. But trying to do it right now in the face of all of this mana, I think it's unlikely that MJ goes for anything significant right now. Would prefer to sort of set up shop a little bit, maybe get some protection with Giver of Runes, and then hopefully set up a spot where you can combo down the line.
Well, Auriok Champion is going to be placed in the stack here by Michael Jacobs, so we'll see if this card does resolve. It looks like the answer is going to be very quickly, no, it does not. There's an Archmage's Charm to counter that. Let's see what the follow-up is going to be. Looks like Jacob is going to very quickly sacrifice a Windswept Heath, go get a Temple Garden. That's going to ETB untapped, and looking to get Giver of Runes online right now to be able to protect the Walking Ballista, perhaps. Though, you're seeing a hand here from Kuisma of all counter magic, and now a third Archmage's Charm drawn.
Yeah, Archmage's Charm is really great insurance to have here because it can counter any combo piece that MJ happens to have, and then also can steal something like Giver of Runes if the game should happen to break that way.
Well, shields down. All right. Now remember, Jace is a card that can win through infinite life because we can do the whole exile your library thing. And it looks like we're going to bounce the Giver of Runes. So let's head back over to Michael Jacob, who's drawn another copy of Heliod. Now remember, Walking Ballista, you're going to need 2 counters on that thing. I believe if memory does serve to go off, right, you need 2 counters, then give it lifelink, and then be able to do your thing. With just 1 counter and you give it lifelink, not going to be able to do its thing. So can get the Ballista deployed, but can't go off just yet.
And I think that's why Matti took the opportunity this turn to get the Jace down. But as you mentioned, sort of the magic amount of mana for MJ to have is 6. That allows him to play Walking Ballista for 2 and activate Heliod and combo out. With him only threatening to go to 5 mana next turn, there was no risk of getting comboed out. If MJ has a Spike Feeder and gains infinite life, as you mentioned, that's not game over. With Mystic Sanctuary and Jace the Mind Sculptor, Matti can play through that. So I think that was a really good opportunity there for Matti to kind of the last chance where it's safe for him to tap out on his own turn and get Jace the Mind Sculptor onto the battlefield.
So we're going to head back over to Matti now, who is starting to build a pretty dominant board and battlefield. Active Jace, multiple copies of Archmage Charm, Cryptic Command as, of course, the ultimate safety. So curious how our team or control player does want to start things off here. Is it just brainstorming with Jace? Is it bouncing something? Who knows? We'll see.
it's potential. It's possible here that Matti's actually going to want to Fate Seal here to get the loyalty up a little bit, and then do something about the Walking Ballista. If you brainstorm and then try to kill or otherwise mitigate the ballista finishes off Jace. Your hand's good enough that that's not the end of the world, but you can probably do better. And looks like Matti's going with the brainstorm, however.
Yep, you did get the no. We got the Fate Seal. You called it.
Oh, it's Fate Seal.
Loyalty's up to 4 right now. And now here's Archmage's Charm looking to take the Walking Ballista, which means that's just more of a clean answer to kill it. So it is interesting insofar as the Ballista, where does it want to deal its damage? It looks like it's going to go to Jace for 1. And I think we're going to make it 2. So Jace is going to fall back down to 2. And now we head back over, it looks like, to Michael Jacob, who's going to, I believe, start this turn off by cracking that Horizon Cannon. But we'll see what MJ does want to do. Deck not getting very much done. Looks like he's going to want to thin his deck out a little bit first here with the Windswept Heath to maybe increase the percentages of drawing a good card just a smidge. So now Horizon Canopy was sacrificed. Skyclave Apparition is a clean answer to Jace the Mind Sculptor.
Yeah, this was kind of MJ's last shot to do something about the Jace, be it remove it or just win the game outright. Very important to pick up that draw step because this Giver of Runes was not going to be able to threaten the Jace inside of combat. And once Matti untapped with all of that, it would be very hard to overcome. I still think MJ's position is really tenuous here, given the quality of Matti's hand, but at least getting the Jace off the battlefield for the time being manages the worst of it.
Looks like we're going to get a Mystic Sanctuary, going to put an Archmage's Charm back on top. So that'll be the draw step here for Matti Kuisma. Now with land number 6, that's blue source number 6. So double Archmage's Charm at the ready. Speaking of doubles, 2 Heliod Sun crowned in hand. Let's call that less than ideal, shall we?
Yep. I mean, this is the issue with playing a combo deck that's built around a lot of synergistic pieces. MJ's deck is actually pretty lean as far as these things go. He doesn't have that many redundant copies, but he is built around Heliod, and the extra copies aren't worth very much here.
Heliod's going to give that Skyclave Apparition life link, which means the Apparition is going to deal 2 damage, gain a little bit of life, and then get a +1/+1 counter on it from Heliod's trigger. Looks like end step, we're going to see an Archmage's Charm, going to draw 2 cards, Sanctuary and an Island. We did it once. Do we want to do it twice? You aren't putting the shields down for Collected Company, so there's not a ton to fear if you do Archmage's Charm right now to draw 2 more cards.
Yeah, I guess there's a question here if you wanted to do something about the Giver instead, but it's not really doing anything right now, nor is it likely to do very much in the long term. I could see, I think that the question is more, do you want a Charm to draw 2, or you just want to hold the Charm and play your Mystic Sanctuary? You are at some risk of flooding out here. If you draw 2 cards, don't really find much to do, and now you're just on your Cryptic Command. Again, it's not the end of the world, but Matti might want to play this super safe and just untap and take it from there.
Well, I think that's what's under consideration right now. I think I agree with you that taking the Giver of Runes doesn't appear to be all that necessary, I guess I would say. Remember that Giver of Runes cannot protect itself. Mother of Runes can, but I don't think we're ever going to see that one again. So Giver of Runes cannot protect itself. And as you mentioned, Patrick, I think that Matti is just deciding, do I want the Giver of Runes, do I want to draw 2, or do I just want to hold steady here with this Archmage's Charm, which could have some additional upside later on in the game.
And Michael's clock is not the fastest, but keep in mind he is kind of close to enabling the devotion on Heliod, which would substantially increase his clock. Not primary concern for Matti by any means, but just another thing to keep in mind while he's weighing his options.
Well, it's going to be draw 2. Force Negation Lightning Bolts. Time to untap and draw Scalding Tarn. Mystic Sanctuary in the grip. Going to do a quick check here. Always want to know how many Mystic Sanctuaries these players are playing. Don't think players really play 4 anymore. So yeah, we're down to 2. One's already on the battlefield, one's in hand, so I can't fetch for the other one. Looks like just a land and a pass with counter magic and stuff at the ready. Hello, Gabby Township.
It's not the worst draw. I mean, all MJ is really only able to attack right now, and he's not going to be able to resolve anything significant through this wall of counter spells, most likely. So, we're kind of on this path already of the modest beatdowns. Might as well make them slightly less modest.
Well, looks like Heliod's going to try to give this lifelink again. And it looks like that might actually work, so we could definitely say that Michael's draw was less than ideal, but Township kind of gives you some sort of roundabout route maybe to victory, as now the Skyclave operation, it deals 3, gains 3, and now it's a 4/4. Here's a Lightning Bolt on Giver of Runes. Again, remember, it cannot protect itself, so that 1/2 is going to protect Skyclave Apparition in response, and we may see Matti use this cryptic command to return and draw, which means a 4/4 token Illusion will be left behind. Goodbye, Giver of Runes. Untap and draw. Archmage's Charm alongside a Polluted Delta. Scalding Tarn, Force Negation, and Island. In for 4 comes that Illusion token.
Yeah, MJ on some real trying to make lemonade out of lemons kind of draw here.
Yeah, I mean, neither player's had a great draw, but Michael's has definitely been worse than Matti's, and we are definitely seeing that unfold right now. So, Collected Company, not a bad draw step. Here is Skyclave Apparition. We'll see if this is going to resolve. It is. Just a 2/2 in the face of that 4/4. Nothing too scary going on there. And we'll see how Archmage's Charm wants to be used once again. You've mentioned that, as usual, got a couple of options there. One of those options, it's kind of the 4th mode on it, which is do nothing.
Just hang tight, right?
Yeah, just chill.
As good as it, so this is kind of a weird game right now because Matti's position is quite good, hand substantially better, better presence on the battlefield. But Gavany Township plus Heliod means that MJ's kind of in a good position to damage race if we're just going back and forth and attacking. So there is a weird burden on Matti to kind of do something right now, in spite of MJ's battlefield looking really modest.
Yeah, one thing that's kind of strange about this game is we're working with perfect information. I like to bring this up a lot. So we're seeing that Michael Jacob has had 2 cards in his hand for a very long time. Those 2 cards are, of course, the 2nd and 3rd copy of Heliod. Not great in multiples, but important to draw given what the deck is trying to accomplish. The question I have is, does Kuisma actually know what's going on in Jacob's hand? I think you could probably deduce, okay, he's got at least 1 copy of Heliod. I don't know what the other mystery card is. And then he just has drawn a copy of Collected Company. So kind of interesting insofar as if you're the team or control player, trying to deduce what's going on in Michael Jacob's hand, because he hasn't really done very much this game.
I think the cat is out of the bag once that MJ plays the Gavany Township, because the other alternative is that he's just holding up some lands. But once you have Gavany Township, you have so much need for mana to activate Township and do other stuff that MJ would start playing lands out of his hand, even if he was holding them back previously. So there really isn't a whole lot that you can conclude here other than redundant copies of Heliod and whatever the draw step happened to be.
We're going to see an Archmage's Charm draw 2 once again. So many divinations. Such hard to cast divinations.
we are at the risk now. The danger spot for all these plays, as I mentioned before, is Matti is kind of at risk of flooding out, and I believe does not have access to Mystic Sanctuary to fetch 4 anymore, as you mentioned, only the 2 copies. So again, his position's solid, but this is not a lock by any means.
No, far from it. Lightning Bolt and Mana Leak are the draws there. Lightning Bolt can take care of the Skyclave Apparition. But again, no more Mystic Sanctuaries to search up. Hasn't found a copy of Uro yet, or Ren and 6, or, really a ton. Arbor Elf, less than ideal, but I guess we're trying to look for positives. It's another creature.
It's another creature. It's a lot of mana, so it invalidates the Mana Leak. It's another thing to do with Township and Heliod. It's not a great draw, but again, it's like Matti's position is kind of falling apart here. He's got a lot of really big draws, but he needs to find them soon, because if all he can do is attack with a 4/4 for the rest of the game, MJ can beat that sort of setup even if he doesn't draw very well from here.
Yep. Well, there's Arbor Elf looking to grow up. There's boy, pretty bad spells there. Wow, this game could still be won here by MJ, even though he's drawn quite bad.
Yeah,
for 4 more.
This was the risk that I mentioned before with just firing off those Archmage's Charms.
my
it's
gosh.
really nice. It's really nice with all that money and prestige on the line for both decks to be just coughing up the best draws possible. You love to see that.
Just embarrassing. Township, lifelink, let's go. We're doing this little weird race back and forth. All right. Put a counter there too. Oh my god, what's this draw? Oh, there's a real Magic card.
There we go.
Jeez.
But it's still an interesting spot here because Matti is falling behind on the battlefield. The Cryptic Command gives him a ton of ways to navigate this. It cuts off the top of Jacob's decks. You can obviously counter the best draws, and you can tap and draw or bounce and tap, whatever. You can manage it that way. But he might be compelled to use it on a less than ideal situation, or may not be able to hold it up as an insurance policy because, again, Heliod plus Gavony Township plus any creature is going to be able to outrace a 4/4 very easily.
Well, let's see here. I'm gonna put Ranger Captain of Eos on the stack. I have to imagine between having Cryptic and having Mystic Sanctuary available that you're able to do something to get yourself out of this and win the game next turn. So let's see. Is it Cryptic? Cryptic counter bounce by Sanctuary. That doesn't do anything because it puts the card on top. Then you play Sanctuary, puts the card back on top of the deck. So that's not exactly where you want to be.
Well, I'm curious if the line here with Michael at 3 is to counter and bounce the Arbor Elf. The Arbor Elf then gets redeployed, but is just forced to chump block.
What about just counter tap? Is it that easy? Just counter tap your squad? No, he doesn't. No.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if there's anything to, if the mana leak changes the calculus at all. Sure. I don't think so, because if you do something about the Arbor Elf, he can untap the Force or Utopia Sprawl on it, so he has a lot of mana left over to work with.
Like, Matti doesn't know that MJ's just sitting on 3 Heliods. Again, can probably deduce that there's at least 1, 2 of them in hand, doesn't know what the other card is. So is it worth it to just say, hey, I'll leak this first, you pay your 3, then you only have 1 mana left over, now I'll counter tap, whatever. I do think it might make some sense to leak first, but we only know that because we can see what's in MJ's hand and know that it's total error.
Even if MJ is sandbagging some sort of haymaker, it's likely the mana leak tags it as a follow-up. Yeah. And MJ had spots where literally like any land or any 1/1 for 1 would have been a valuable card to add to the battlefield.
Yep.
So even though you don't expect your opponent to just have drawn 4 copies of Heliod, you are running out of any plausible explanation for what else could be going on in that hand, because almost any card you would have seen at this point in some form or fashion.
So one thing I this is gonna be weird. Like, if he leaks it, if you're MJ, do you pay? You probably do, right? Because you don't know Matti's hand. Yeah. So like, we're in this alternate universe where it's like, yeah, maybe I don't pay for your leak, and maybe I actually get to attack and give my creature lifelink. And if that happens, then you just bounce the creature, everything else. So I think Cryptic was the check mark on this game.
Yep. But it did get kind of hairy here in spite of how bad MJ's draw was. Because without Uro or without even something like Run in 6, Matti is prone to drawing some extra cards, but just sort of flooding out, like we saw in this game.
And this is also, Ranger Captain is the perfect card to play here, because this is the kind of card that if it resolves, then you sack it, right? And then it's like, okay, I'll spike for you, gain infinite life or something like that. So this is actually like the perfect draw. Now let's see. Counter target spell, return target permanent to its owner's hand. Okay. So it's very easy for all of us, you and I, everyone watching Twitch, to just go, yeah, you obviously just counter and tap this creature and then kill him with your illusion. That's not what's happening.
Yeah, I think if it's 6 of one, half dozen another, if it doesn't matter if it's tapped or bounced, making MJ spend the 1 mana could mean the mana leak has a wider range of things it could tag.
So there's a growth spiral. We're going to play that right away. Let's see what the draw is. Ren in 6. That's pretty good because you can play that. You can kill the Arbor Elf. There is, I lied. Can activate the township in response. All right, that's not it.
Well, it still forces a chump block.
It does, but that also gives you another draw to actually come back and win.
Yes, it's again, Matti's not quite out of the woods yet, although I think the combination of the mana leak just cuts off too many of the good draws, I believe.
I don't necessarily agree. The only reason I say that is because Spike Feeder's infinite life now.
Yeah, Spike Feeder would be that's the hit here.
And 1, 2, 3, 4. Also, you can resolve company through leak. I mean, this is MJ is weirdly live. Big draw. Come on, let's see something good. That's a magic card. Snare. You're right. Snare. That's on me. Okay, no longer a magic card.
It's not on anyone. It was exciting for a moment, but
Yeah.
then it was no good.
and then that's the game Ruski. Well, game number 1. An interesting one. Gonna go to Matti Kuisma. Interesting little back and forth here. As you mentioned, both decks coughing up their optimal draws in quotes. These players going to get to some sideboarding here. Perhaps we'll see a combo show up. Perhaps MJ won't draw 4 copies of Heliod. Maybe Matti will actually draw one of his copies of Uro. We don't know, but these players are going to get to the sideboarding now. A lot's going to change. You can see Kuisma is already moving a lot of cards here. He's on the right side. Michael Jacob on the left.
So it's interesting when we covered Michael Jacob against Oliver 2 earlier in the tournament, playing MJ playing this deck and Oliver 2 playing the 4-color Omnath control deck that has a lot of similarities to Matti's deck here. It seemed like when he played against Oliver that MJ was reticent to bring in the copies of Surgical Extraction. And here he brought them in instantly. And I'm curious if his philosophy on the matchup has shifted, or if there's some structural element that's different between the two decks that would cause him to want Surgical in one place and not in the other. It's possible. The fact that Matti does not have Omnath means that he's leaning very heavily on his graveyard to be able to win the game, be it Uro or value with Mystic Sanctuary, even something like Renin 6, or if his philosophy on the matchups changed. I don't know, but it's interesting to see him bringing in instantly here when we covered him earlier in a similar matchup and he did not bring them in.
Well, looks like they're just about settled up here. It looks like MJ is taking out at least 1 copy of Heliod, saying enough of that already. Looks like Skyclave Apparition is still going to be hanging out. Remember, after this, do a little interview with Michael Jacob that Maria Marthaldi has already conducted. We'll show you that. We've got Pioneer action to bring it. Oops, all spells against Mono Green Walkers. I have no idea how that plays out. But one of those decks is 79 cards, so I'm excited to watch that unfold. And then if we do go to a third and final match between these two, higher seed gets to choose the format. And the higher seed is, of course, Matti Kuisma, who was the #1 overall seed here, as he has laid waste to this tournament thus far. Both players are going to take a look at their opener. For Michael Jacob, got 2 Arbor Elves, Pendelhaven, Plains, Horizon Canopy, Heliod, and a Collected Company. For Kuisma, I see a Fry, a Remand, a Ren, and 6, which is great against those Arbor Elves, though Pendelhaven could cause a little bit of trouble there. Uro, can't believe it's actually finally been drawn. Growth Spiral, a little Triumph action as well. So looks like good hands here from both players once again.
Well, the problem with MJ's hand is that he does not have a forest to go with the Arbor Elf.
Awkward.
So this might actually be a mulligan. I think that if there was a forest here, it's you're right, it is vulnerable to Renin 6, but I don't think you would consider mulliganing this as it stands. If you draw a forest to turn on your Arbor Elves, I guess that's good, but then the hand's sort of tipping over into the point where it's flooding out. And if you don't draw a forest, then your Arbor Elves aren't worth very much.
Yeah, you make a very good point there. You think you mulligan this one if you're Michael?
My instinct is to mulligan. I think that MJ's hand has just too many ways it goes wrong without a sufficiently high upside.
Well, if you're playing. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
You're playing against so many counters. This hand is very all in on that Collected Company resolving, and if you don't draw a forest or it just gets countered or however the game breaks, then this hand doesn't amount to very much.
Well, he's going to keep. You saw Kuisma send his hand back. Bolt, Archmage Charm, Mana Leak, Spell Snare, Teamer Colors of Mana, and there is a Bolt. Plains the draw. That's not a forest.
Yeah, now we're in the the blend of flooding out and not having enough mana to work with somehow.
Yeah, a little strange. I would agree. And this Mana League's actually going to be looking pretty good over the course of this game now, too. There's a Ranger captain of Eos.
Well, what I'm interested in here is Archmage's Charm, taking the Arbor Elf, and then Matti going to work with that breeding pool.
Oh, talk to me.
I'm already ready.
Yeah.
I don't want to give too much of the game away here, but that's what I'm looking for.
Mana League's going to take care of the Ranger captain. Arbor Elf's going to come across here for one. We're going to head back Matti's way. That is a misty rainforest. We could have that Archmage's dream come true, but not just yet. Auriok champion, the draw.
That sure is a card. Nothing to do with anything going on.
It has text. We can't argue that it does have text. Eclectic Company being held up here.
MJ not willing to fire an opening mana, and heads up play there for Matti, not breaking the Mystery Rainforest, because that would have been a window where Archmage's Charm was no longer available, and MJ could have potentially resolved his copy of Collected Company.
Let's see if he wants to let it rip now. Looks like the answer is yes. So here's Collected Company. Be shocked if this resolved. So, going to sacrifice the Misty Rainforest here. Will Kuisma. And there is Archmage's Charm to counter it.
Matti's got to be thrilled with this, too. Not only is he lining up a counterspell against one of MJ's premium cards, but Matti really wanted his mana to be freed up here to be able to cast Uro and even maybe Mystic Sanctuary back in Archmage's Charm or a Lightning Bolt. His hand was a little awkward there. Didn't really want to leave up the mana, but felt compelled to. And now he has free reign to sort of develop his mana and draw some extra cards.
Mystic Sanctuaries, plural, have been drawn. You'd rather be fetching for those. They're both in the hand right now. So a touch awkward there. Uro, Spell Snare, both in hand as well at the moment here for Kuisma. So not a full lock on this game. Auriok Champion and Heliod have been deployed. Finally drew that Forest, did Michael Jacob. Obviously a lot late to this party, but does get a draw step just for the turn, as well as sacrificing Horizon Canopy next turn as well. So we'll see how things do shape up here.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, a line available here is Mystic Sanctuary, put Mana Leak on top, play Uro, draw your Mana Leak, which covers you against NJ's best stuff, and then perhaps put Archmage's Charm or Lightning Bolt on top as well.
There is Sanctuary.
Although it's also an open question exactly how much of Matti's graveyard he wants to eat up at this point, because he might be better served just trying to escape Uro as soon as possible.
Oh, that's fun. Gain a little life there from the Uro entering the battlefield. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe I think maybe the inflection point here for Matti wanting to put Lightning Bolt on top of the deck is he can just cast it. It doesn't interfere with his ability to escape Uro if he happens to want to do that next turn. If you bring back Mana Leak and MJ doesn't cooperate, you're kind of jammed up. And I think Matti wants to, well, especially with MJ on no cards in hand, but drawing to a lot of really good cards, wants to cut it off as soon as possible. If you get Uro starting to roll downhill, drawing extra cards and able to Mystic Sanctuary back a counterspell, perhaps, that's probably going to be good enough. But you want to do that as soon as possible because your position right now is a little tenuous.
Sanctuary is going to put, it looks like Archmage's Charm back on top. And for Michael Jacob, one thing you're probably at least somewhat happy about is the fact that, okay, both Sanctuaries are on the battlefield. I ain't got to worry about that part of the game anymore. So that's cool. I know what you're drawing. I know what's in your hand except for the Spell Snare. So pretty big draw step here for Jacob. They get two looks at it. Prismatic Vista, that's a swing and a miss.
Yeah, that's the window. And it's not like the door is completely shut on MJ here. It's not like Matti's got a stranglehold on this game, but it's getting a lot harder. Draw step to draw step, Matti's going to be doing a lot better. And, Uro is looming. There's a burden on MJ to get this game over with as fast as possible because left to each player's own devices, Matti's going to overwhelm him pretty quickly.
Here come the beatdowns. Maybe pump up the jam with the old Pendelhaven, perhaps. We're going to give Auriok Champion lifelink.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do it there too. And pump there. Oh yeah. Let's just really get it going. All right, Bolt, fine. Okay. Trigger, let's grow there. Vista, pass the turn back. Now remember, we know Archmage's Charm is the draw. How are we going to use it? Looks like might be just drawing two cards right away. Okay, not going to waste any time. 1-2. Bolt, Strand. Strand's timely.
That's the hit.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the reason to main phase it right there, is to try to get to escape Uro this turn.
That's exactly what we're going to be doing. So the big 6/6 is coming back from the graveyard. Triggers are coming along with it. It's going to check for escape. That one is going to be good to go. Going to gain a life now, will MJ. So that Warrior Champion is going to turn into a 4/4. Then Uro, of course, will draw a card as well. Ren in 6, the fine. No graveyard to work with. Nothing to really ping either. So not that critical. Jacob going to sacrifice that Vista, get a basic forest. Draw step here. Skyclave Apparition. Pretty darn good.
It's a pretty timely draw.
Yep.
I mean,
and
shields were down.
Heliod's on now too.
I mean, there was a chance there that MJ could have actually spiked the game outright. This is not a bad consolation prize.
Yep. So goodbye, Uro. Little lifelink action. Here comes some significant beatdowns for 9. Remember, Auriok Champion is a tough one to get off the battlefield for this deck. You can kind of like bounce it with Cryptic Command and stuff like that, but bolting or anything is not really going to be useful. That's not really going to get the job done. Scalding Tarn doesn't have Mystic Sanctuaries to get back. There's nothing in the graveyard anyway. Ren in 6 appears to be a blank. Lightning Bolt can kill Apparition, yes, and make an illusion token. That's all well and good. But I would say that we are in some serious trouble right now for Matti Kuisma.
Yes, and we're seeing kind of a repeat of game 1 in that Matti's card advantage, and obviously this deck is very good at drawing extra cards with Uro and Archmage's Charm and whatever, is somewhat mitigated by the fact that he's prone to flooding out. It's not easy for him to convert all this mana productively. And so, yes, he's drawn extra cards. He's technically up cards as the game has progressed, but it is dampened by the fact that he has more mana than he could possibly use.
For sure. Once up the draw, that's a bit of a blank. Can sacrifice that, get a land out of your deck, Temple Garden as an example, and then sacrifice that Horizon Canopy if you'd like. Do remember that Lightning Bolt can go after that Skyclave Apparition. That would generate an illusion token, which of course would trigger the Auriok Champion, which means a +1/+1 counter could be divvied about. So just another thing to keep track of here when we're playing these complex modern matches that are in front of us.
Well, I don't know how much more complicated this is going to be because Matti is facing lethal. He's going to have to get his cards on the table here very soon, and pretty dispiriting one to lose in the event that Matti can't come back from this one, because MJ's draw again, just not a whole lot going on here. But the modest beatdown is able to maybe steal this one and get us to a third game.
And this is something you talked about when we were going over the matchup a little bit, is that this green-white deck, though it is pretty redundant in its ability to combo, sometimes the modest beatdowns do work themselves into the equation, and that's what we're seeing here. It's not the sexiest beatdowns I've ever seen. I've given quite a few beatdowns in my day, as have you, but sometimes these are good enough to cross the finish line.
Yeah, no, Matti priced into a chump block here, and nothing really going on. I mean, the hand's a blank, essentially. The Ren in 6 doesn't really offer anything.
Looks like Jacob's going to sacrifice, get a Temple Garden, give this lifelink. That'll take care of that token. Of course, creature's very, very large. Trigger, bigger. Do we want to sack the canopy and see what we draw right now? Looks like the answer is yes. What do we find? Another canopy. Okay. Draw here. Archmage's Charm. Well, let's do it again.
Yeah, I suppose you can charm into Cryptic. Keep the game going that way. A couple other big draws here. I guess Jason the Mind Sculptor would be huge.
Yeah, it wouldn't be so bad.
I think Matti's just considering here, do I want to thin the deck out first? Or is there any chance that I could draw into a Triome that I could cycle and get back with Ren in 6? Just some really thin math here on the margins. I'm assuming that we're going to see this Archmage's Charm here in just a moment.
Yeah, all stuff that adds up, though, especially when you're playing a match with this much on the line. So you got time to work with to try to figure out if what the exact line is with this decision.
Yeah, I think the only consideration is if I draw a Triome and then cycle that, does that get me anywhere? And then I'm better served Ren in 6ing back my cycling land, or should I just thin out now to try to draw one of the spells that can save me?
Well, down to 3. So let's peel 2. How do we do? Well, 2 whiffs. That takes care of that. Michael Jacob going to win game number 2 here over Matti Kuisma. Jacob going to draw a couple Skyclave Apparition among those cards. Take a little look before we get ready here for our third and final of our first best of 3 matches. Remember, we kick things off here with Modern, then we go over to Pioneer, and then the person with the higher seed has the option if we do go to a third and final match between these two, and that would be Kuisma with the option between Modern or Pioneer. Also, Pioneer coming up after this is going to be Oops All Spells in the hands of Matti Kuisma against Michael Jacob, playing that mono green Planeswalker deck that has served many well in Pioneer on Magic Online.
It's a tough one right there to lose.
Yeah.
I mean, MJ's draw was better than we saw in game number 4 with all 4 Heliods coming to the party, but was not the most explosive thing. Arbor Elves with no forests, and your collected company got countered. It had all the makings of a game that Matti was going to eventually be able to overpower and win, but just didn't find a recurring source of card advantage. Too many lands were drawn, and MJ was able to finish off with some of the secondary and even tertiary threats of the deck.
Yeah, for me, as weird as these 2 games have been, neither player with particularly good draws. So hey, let's see some fireworks here. Let's see the top end of what these decks are capable of. They're not here for no reason, or at least I'd like to think so. Jacob here, Utopia, Sprawl, Collected Company, Skyclave Apparition, and lands. I've seen better, and then Monty's hand speaks for itself. That's a little better. That first one, not so much.
His hand's a little rough too. I mean, I suppose you can bottom the Ambusher, and yeah, the hand's not perfect, but preferable to 5 cards.
All right, looks like 1 goes away there for Kuisma. And we're about to be underway here. It actually looks like a mulligan to 5. Brutal. Okay. Well, Remand and Archmage's Charm are going to have some work to do.
Big draw here for Matti is a fetch land. Then you can cast your run in 6, you can get your land back, and start rolling downhill a little bit.
Well, let's see what this draw is going to be. Mystic Sanctuary, not you. Another copy of Collected Company here for MJ. We know how powerful that card can be. It hasn't resolved yet in this match, but it might be resolving this game. We'll head back over to Kuisma, who has drawn a fetch land now. Now, does he want to deploy Ren and 6 just yet? We'll see. And it looks like the answer is no. Going to leave Archmage's Charm for counter, potentially draw cards, so on and so forth. I have to imagine that Misty Rainforest is reserved for a breeding pool. That's Arbor Elf the draw.
And I think from MJ's perspective, you probably just say go here with 2 copies of Collected Company. You can pass Collected Company at the end of Matti's turn, and then if that gets countered, untap and cast your second one.
Absolutely. Or you can let it rip right now if you're really feeling it in response to that fetch.
I mean, with Mana Leak and Remand as part of the equation, I think when you have 2 in your hand, you're probably better served to wait because it's really hard for it to go wrong. It's hard for him to counter both.
Triome, actually, the weapon of choice as opposed to the breeding pool that I mentioned previously. So that lands now on the battlefield. Mystic Sanctuary in the grip. That's be the play. And now here comes Ren and 6 with Remand at the ready. Cryptic Command drawn last turn. Looks like Ren and 6 is going to tick up to get that Misty Rainforest back in the hand. I think we're going to see this Windswept Heath get sacrificed and Collected Company number 1 be placed onto the stack. Remand will delay the inevitable. Spell Snare the draw. Skyclave Apparition, the draw for the turn. Let's go collect some company here, perhaps. No, we're going to go to Skyclave Apparition, take care of the Ren in 6. Follow up. Okay, you like that?
I much prefer this line from MJ. Okay. With your opponent having mulligan twice, the Ren in 6 really lets Matti get the land drops going and also threatens the Arbor Elf in hand. And again, you have 2 copies of Collected Company. You can wait, even if you give Matti an opportunity to, Cryptic Command 1 or just leave some mana up, you get some beatdowns going, and you have a pretty good shot of being able to cast Collective Company and having the second one resolve even if the first one gets countered.
And let's not forget as well, in combination with Arbor Elf, Utopia Sprawl is going to actually be making multiple mana. So we're going to be able to see 2 Collective Companies actually cast her on the end step, and that's actually pretty telling. So you're going to see green. There's your untap. Do it again. Here's Collective Company number 1. This is the one that Matti knows about. This looks like it's going to get countered by something.
And you saw a no attack there from MJ last turn. Maybe looked a little bit weird, but respect for Night Pack Ambusher.
Sure, fair enough. Looks like MJ is going to go to. This is going to be an upkeep. Interesting.
This is really sharp.
One. Yeah.
So this means that Matti can't mana leak it. And in the event that Aether Gust is the response, MJ just draws the company and does it again.
And if it's remand, it's back in your hand again. Yeah. It's really sharp.
Because if he plays it at Matti's end step and Matti has mana leak, you've lost it.
Yep.
And if you untap, draw, and then main phase it, and he has Aether Gust, now you're set back a turn, you might not get another window. So This is the time that he can do it, where either of the 2 mana responses that Matti has are no good. Really heads up play here from MJ.
Matti's going to go and sack that fetch land and get a Mystic Sanctuary. Here is that Gust. So that's going to go on top. Guess what he's going to draw? Collective Company. 3rd time's a charm, it looks like. How do we do? Ranger Captain, Auriok Champion.
Not bad.
Not bad.
Not bad. And Matti's deck, not really equipped with sweepers. I don't even think he's got something like engineered explosives hanging out in the sideboard. Mm-hmm. It's not easy for him to manage a battlefield like this. He doesn't block all that well either.
No. I mean, we saw in that first game where MJ was giving those mediocre beatdowns. In the second game, he won with mediocre beatdowns. So we know that Matti's ability to really control a battlefield is, I don't want to say it's non-existent, but it's certainly difficult. And it is compounded by the fact that he's on a mulligan to 5.
Yep. And then to circle back, MJ there, I think, taking care of the run-in 6 earlier rather than casting Collective Company was really wise. It could be different if it was 7 cards versus 7 cards, but with your opponent on 5, you just sort of, especially a deck like Matti's that needs a lot of different stuff to kind of get off the ground, you just want to choke those resources as much as possible. Do not allow your opponent to just sit back and accrue extra cards. And now we're at this position here where Matti's going to be forced to kind of Archmage's Charm and Cryptic Command defensively rather than offensively to try to stem the tide.
Yeah. Matti really has his back against the wall here. I'm curious to see if he's going to be able to find a way to wiggle his way out of this one. Looks like we're going to head back to MJ. There's Heliod now as the draw. Drew 4 of those in the first game. Drew his first one here in game number 3. And we know how the infinite combo does work with that card. And it's not that hard to put together, especially when you have Ranger Captain of Eos on the battlefield to be able to just sacrifice and say, you can't do stuff. Two, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yep, you can just go for it now, I think, pretty cleanly.
Yeah, whatever we're going to see in response. But this prevents counterspells from being part of the equation.
Mm-hmm.
And with all the mana that MJ has available, I don't see a way for Matti to get out from this.
I don't think so either. Now you can play the way to kick it off here is you play Heliod, then you play Ballista for 1. Creature enters the battlefield from Auriok Champion's trigger. You put that counter onto Heliod. You put the counter onto Ballista. Give it lifelink, go nuts. Pretty sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think MJ knows that he's good here because there's no response that Matti can have right now that impacts his ability to combo out. Everything is rolled up in Michael's hand, and once this trigger resolves, there's no response available. So it's just an issue of, let Matti think about whatever responses he may want to have here, but it's much ado about nothing. I don't think there's a way for Matti to work his way out of this one.
I don't think so either. He could, there are things that he can bounce here in Auriok Champion. He could take Arbor Elf, I suppose, but Arbor Elf will just float the mana, whatever. So I don't think that's going to be particularly effective. Cryptic can just draw a card flat out. Maybe you draw something, maybe you draw something of use there. There's a lot to think about. So we will see.
And I mean, this is a really well played game here from Michael. That up on my own upkeep collected company was not the most intuitive line, but with open deck lists, you know exactly what responses Matti can have, and it played around everything. Mana Leak was no good, and Aether Gust, which Matti actually ended up having there, was also no good.
Totally agree. It was a very, very well played set of turns, and well played game here by Michael Jacob, to be sure. So we are going to see these players think it through a little bit here. Kuisma trying to figure out just what can I draw to get myself out of this situation. Is there something I can do that causes Jacob to make a mistake in order for me to win in this situation, or am I just dead to rights? Am I about to get infinite combo?
Yeah. I can't even imagine what a response would look like here. That could, I mean, the only thing that you can really initiate with is Archmage's Charm to draw 2 cards, but the only things you're going to find are more reactive cards that don't play in the aftermath of the trigger resolving. And again, you can't do anything about it up front. Everything's rolled up in MJ's hands, so your Cryptic Command doesn't do anything either.
Yeah. Interestingly, the only thing I'm really curious about is should MJ have attacked first? Does that change the equation at all in case something goes wrong this turn?
I don't. I think that
I think it's very much on the margins. And also, I mean, the thing you mentioned too is like Nightpack Ambusher means that you may not want to attack first at all, right? That's what you have to think about.
I mean, and I think MJ knows he's good. They have open deck lists. I don't think there's a response here that Matti has. I mean, the only thing that again that I can imagine even like initiating with is drawing 2 cards for the charm. Because if you take the Arbor Elf, MJ just floats mana in response, so that doesn't really get you anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, we can go down the paths, which is Archmage Charm. You draw 2 or you steal the elf, right? Those are your options. And I agree with you, stealing the elf doesn't do anything. Cryptic, you can bounce the Oriog Champion, draw a card, and maybe you draw something of consequence there. I'm not entirely sure. So we're going to start here with gain control target creature. Well, it's on MJ now to add the mana. And so now you could respond by bouncing the land with Cryptic. Okay. You did it. Now, if memory serves, MJ hasn't played land yet this turn. That's good. Braid the draw, sure. 1, 2, 3. Is MJ still good?
Yeah, I guess actually MJ needed to tap the land for mana first.
Yep. Now, I still think if MJ hasn't played a land yet, which he hasn't, so doesn't he just play this?
He doesn't even need to play the. No, he still needs to play the.
He still needs to play land to give it lifelink. Yeah, so now he plays the land.
Yeah.
Give it lifelink. And gun you. You have no responses.
I mean, that was a heads up play by Matti. That was the best that he could do there, and I guess MJ would have been better served tapping the land, kind of as the first order of business there. But he had even that outcome covered, so doesn't really matter.
And that is going to do it. Michael Jacob is going to win this game and match here over Matti Kuisma, 2-1. Our modern match goes to our Selesnya Heliod Company player, which means we got to get ready to move to Pioneer, folks. We are going to take a little bit of a break right now. When we do come back, we're going to go over those Pioneer deck lists. We're going to take a look at that 79-card Oops All Spells deck, that 60-card Mono Green Planeswalkers deck, hear from Michael Jacob since he had an interview with Mira Bertholdi, and then watch these players do battle. We'll see you back here just a bit. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Cedric Phillips, Patrick Sullivan, getting ready to bring you more coverage of Day 3 of the 2019 Magic Online Championship. Logan Nettles waiting patiently in the finals to see if he's going to play against Matti Kuisma or Michael Jacob. We got to switch gears to Pioneer right now, and we are going to take a look at Oops All Spells against Mono Green Planeswalkers. I want to start with Oops All Spells if we can. Yes, we can. Yes, we did. 79 cards, Patrick. Who said 60? Is the way to go. That's what I say.
Well, it's typically been 60 or 80 for Yorian. 79, the most you can get to without having that campaign available. Anyhow, combo here is pretty straightforward. You have technically no lands in the deck. So Undercity Informer or Balustrade Spy, flip over the entire deck. That gets a bunch of Creeping Chills. That brings back a bunch of Ghouls. That brings back a bunch of Amalgams. You don't deck out because you have World Spine Worm, and you win through combat over the course of a couple turns. The deck is capable of doing this very, very quickly as soon as the third turn of the game with mana acceleration into one of the pieces or Neo form alongside your 2-minute creatures.
Super straightforward, just like you said.
Very simple. Very simple.
79 cards is a wild ride, but this deck doesn't want to draw the cards it doesn't want to draw. It really does not want to draw Prized Amalgam, Silver Smoke Ghoul, stuff like that. So that's why your deck is a little bit bigger. Over time, this deck is going to evolve. We have not found the best version of this deck yet, to be sure, since we had 3 players play this deck into this tournament, one with 66 cards, one with 62, and then Matti Kuisma with 79. Other side of things, something a little bit more traditional, so traditional. Mono Green Planeswalkers, everybody. Let's do this. A lot of Planeswalkers in this deck and some mana acceleration. You've got 8/1 mana accelerants in Elvish, Mystic, and Llanowar Elves. Wolfwillow Haven as well for the acceleration package. Planeswalkers aplenty in 4 Karn the Great Creator, 4 Vivian Arcbow Ranger, and 3 Nissa, who shakes the world.
Pioneer's been around for not all that long, but from the beginning of the format till now, this Mono Green Planeswalker deck, Mono Green Devotion, however you want to classify it, has been one of the foundational pieces of the format. If you go back to the initial ban list, it includes the Green Leyline and Oath of Nissa as initial bans because of this strategy. Pretty straightforward. You have the 8 mana accelerators there in Elvish Mystic and Llanowar Elves alongside Nykthos to generate a lot of mana ahead of schedule, and then generate a commanding battlefield with your planeswalkers, be it Vivian and Nissa, along with creatures to just sort of make attacking and blocking really, really strong for yourself. And then you have Karn the Great Creator as an extra dimension to avail yourself of a sort of a toolbox in the sideboard. That Karn the Great Creator is the most important card in this matchup by far for Jacob. He is really limited on interaction that matters at all. Voracious Hydra can do a little bit here or there, but basically he's just racing, and he's going to be slower most of the time. Karn the Great Creator to find Grafdigger's Cage and or Tormod's Crypt is really problematic for the Oops All Spells deck, particularly in game 1 when you don't have access to something like Abrupt Decay. And if MJ is able to get to Karn, plus mana to play a Grafdigger's Cage, or if Tormod's Crypt is good enough, that's going to be a winning play most of the time. However, he has to find that because nothing else in his deck really provides meaningful interaction.
These are 2 decks, especially in game 1. These are ships passing in the night. Patrick, I ask you, who do you think wins this match and why?
I prefer Matti's side of it. Not impossible for MJ to win, but you really need Karn plus 5 mana by turn 3 against most of Matti's draws, because you are going to have to play the Grafdigger's Cage that turn. Some amount of the time, Tormod's Crypt is going to be good enough too. So I suppose Karn into into Tormod's Crypt will be good enough some amount of the time, but you have to have Karn on turn 3. MJ is going to mulligan very aggressively for it, but even mulliganing very aggressively, you still need to have an mana accelerator on turn 1 most likely. You need to be able to draw a Karn, and you need to avoid the Duresses and Thoughtseizes that are hanging out in Matti's deck as well. It's not impossible, but it's just asking for a lot of different pieces to break the right way.
Well, we did have the opportunity to have a little chit-chat with Michael Jacob. He sat down with me at Bartholdi. He's currently up a match, 1 more match win to move on to the finals. Let's hear from them.
Hey everybody, I've got Michael Jacob here. Congratulations on making top 4 of this tournament. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I did not expect after losing the last round that I was in, but apparently playing against the top 3 6 times seems to make my tiebreakers good enough.
Well, you made it in. You're going to be in our top 4 tomorrow. And I've got to ask too, you're a popular streamer. Chat loves you. I grew up like as a baby Magic player. I watched you all the time. I've heard people throw out the term that you're the people's champion. How do you feel now in this big tournament, like kind of moving from that streamer persona to now having more success in tournaments, and here you are at in the top 4?
I think it's pretty awesome that I stream almost all of my testing, if not all of it. And so I'm kind of a known quantity. Even the Mardu Winota deck where I top 4 that championship, I streamed the entirety of my testing. So, and I was still the only person that showed up. So I thought I was a somebody, but it turns out I'm a nobody. Nobody cares what I'm doing. So that means I don't have a problem streaming all my stuff. So I think that's what people like. People want to get a look at how high level tournament players prepare for events, because there's really no outline for people to follow. They're just like, I play these games against my friends and that's it. What else do I do?
Do you
And
feel more like a streamer, or now like you're starting to really break into all that high level play?
I've started this past year taking it a little bit more seriously, and like this, for instance, this Mox event. This is the event I've tested the most for in my life by at least twice as much, if not 3 times as much. Like I streamed all of my testing. It was almost like 10 days straight of like 8 hours a day testing, and it's pretty awesome to be rewarded in some way for that. It gives me some positive reinforcements to keep doing it in the future.
Awesome. Your 2 decks that you brought this weekend for Constructed, Heliod Company, Mono Green Walkers. How do you feel about those choices now here in the top 4?
So, the reason why I chose these decks was through all my testing, I tested all the Pioneer decks and all the Modern decks, like all of them. I just went through website, like, what are the decks? Like, I'll try a league with this, try a league with this, try a league with this. And I ended up on these 2 decks because I knew that I was not going to be very successful in Vintage Cube, which means if I made the top 4, that I would have snuck in at 3rd or 4th at best, which means I was not going to be able to choose what formats I wanted. So I wanted to play decks that could win on the play or the draw. And there are actually there are a few decks, for instance, like Burn or some of the Oops All Spell decks, right? So like if you're on the draw against a Karn deck, you turn 3 Karn and you just lose, right? So I knew I couldn't play decks like that where I was not going to have the choice of choosing last form. If you have one bad matchup, they're going to choose that matchup, and that third one you're going to lose. So I chose decks that I thought was pretty close to 50-50 at the worst in almost every matchup, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out.
Awesome. I really like that super smart metagaming there. I've actually never heard an answer like that from anybody. So for you now at this point, I know it might feel a little too early to think about this, but have you considered, what it would mean for you, for your career, for whatever, if you were to take down the whole tournament?
Well, yeah, I've actually already talked about it with my chat. I was saying like, yes, my lease is up in 6 months, and I was just planning on this money going for a down payment for our house so I can move out and get good internet and stream more, and that's the plan.
Awesome. Well, Michael Jacob, thank you for talking with me. Best of luck to you.
Thanks.
That is Michael Jacob. We got a little bit more insight, on exactly why he chose the decks he has chosen to play, looking for maybe more of a 50-50 approach. And he definitely expressed what this tournament would mean to him if he was actually able to win the whole shebang. So we'll see if he can do that, because it is time now to watch these Pioneer matches unfold. Matti Kuisma on Oops All Spells against Michael Jacob on Mono Green Planeswalkers. Let's do it to it. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 2019 Magic Online Championship Semifinals number 2. Pioneer matches in front of you. Cedric Phillips, Patrick Sullivan, getting ready to watch Michael Jacob play Mono Green Planeswalkers against Matti Kuisma on Oops All Spells. You see the opening end here for Jacob. He's got some Mana Acceleration in 2 copies of Land of War Elves, 3 Forests, another Gargaroth. That one's not going to matter all that much. And then an Oath of Nissa. For Matti Kuisma, Well, these hands are a little bit more difficult to parse because there are no lands in the deck, but those modal double-face cards from Zendikar Rising are what you're looking for. Those are the lands. So Battle Again Recovery, Turn Timber Symbiosis, and those Haggard Maulings are actually lands alongside a Duress, a key card in this matchup, a Paradise Druid, a key card to accelerate and sacrifice either Neoform or Eldritch Evolution, and the latter currently sitting in Kuisma's hand.
So the Elder Gargaroth is definitely not as good as Karn. No question about it. Karn's still the best card in Jacob's deck. I wouldn't be so quick to hand that wave that one is not mattering, because if you are able to get Elder Gargaroth out, that card can actually beat the combo. Like, it generates enough extra blockers and life. I brought it up in the coverage before of sort of the empty the Warrens versus Batterskull fight in Legacy. Like, you need to empty the Warrens for a lot to beat a Batterskull. And there's a similar thing here. So if Jacob is able to get that out ahead of schedule with some ramping, and is able to attack once or twice before Matti is able to combo out, it could be a determining factor. Like I said,
fair enough.
Still not as good as Karn, but there are spots where Elder Gargaroth is actually better than Matti's entire combo.
And we did talk about, and excuse me, Jacob did talk about it, the fact that he can just play a turn 3 card and go get Tormod's Crypt game 1 and say, hey, that's game, you can't win. And that being part of his game plan there. So, these players, again, I still think are taking a long look at their opening hands. This does feel like a keeper to me, for MJ, even though the Oath of Nissa might get snagged here by a duress effect. Still, if you believe that Elder Gargaroth is good enough, then this looks like a keepable hand. He did not, so he sent it back, and he's going to be sending another one back here momentarily.
I think that the card is so high leverage in game number 1, as you mentioned, it's lights out, that it's worth going down pretty low. A hand like that, where it's, you have a turn 3 Elder Gargaroth, that's unless you peel your Karn, that's just not going to be good enough if body combos out. So it's a little bit different post board when Matti has some Pithy Needles and Abrupt Decays where your Karn's not as implied to be as good as it is in game number 1. But game 1, I think Michael's well served kind of going for broke, looking for Karn and mana.
Do remember that I believe Kuisma will be on the play here. And so that means that Jacob is going to be keeping his hand based on the fact that he's on the draw, and it's just looking to turn 3 Karn to get Tormod's Crypt, delay you, and that should take care of itself in game number 1. Again, 2 ships very much passing in the night here in game 1 with, I think, minimal interaction in games 2 and potentially 3. But as you take a look at Kuisma's hand, looks like a turn 3 to me, right? You've got turn 1 Haggard Mauling. You play that as a land, enters the battlefield tap. Turn 2, turn Timber Symbiosis, untap, pay your 3 life, play Paradise Druid. Turn 3, Eldritch Evolution.
And MJ is looking at this 5-card hand. This might, once you're talking about going to 4 cards, even your hands that have Karn may not have enough mana, so you do have to pump the brakes at a certain point. A hand with mana and the ability to look for Karn via Oath of Nissa might be good enough to keep. That hand, if that's a 7-card hand, I'm assuming goes back. But when you're looking at 5 cards, I think that crosses the line to being keepable.
Okay. All right, well, he's going to keep that hand. Haggard Mauling is a land. Let's go over to Michael Jacob. No, drew another copy of the Hydra. There's an Elvish Mystic. Kick it over. Turn Timber Symbiosis. Going to enter the battlefield untapped. There is your Paradise Druid. Vivian. Yep, we're all done here, I think, folks. Doesn't take much for this Oops All Spells deck.
No, I mean, these kind of draws on the play. There's no response to it, really.
Nope.
I mean, the very, very, very top of MJ's range can do it on turn 2, but you're talking about a bunch of Burning Tree Emissaries and a Nykthos and a turn 1 Man Accelerator and a Karn. Like it's like his whole if he Yahtzees his whole hand, then he can beat this. But any normal draw is not going to be able to compete.
It's a turn 3 with a Duress, folks. There's the Blade Trust Spy. That's going to trigger. We're going to put all this deck into the graveyard. Didn't draw any of the Creeping Chills or any of the cards that he doesn't want to draw, did Matti Kuisma. So it should be 4 Creeping Chills, 4 Silver Smoke, actually 3 Silver Smoke Pools, since his deck list doesn't have 4 of those. And World Spine Worms are going to be heading back to the deck. Narcomoeba is going to be heading to the battlefield. And this one should be a wrap here in just a second, unless something really weird happens. And I'll admit, I don't know what that weird thing would be.
Yeah. Also, MJ doesn't even have 4 mana or Karn. So.
Yeah. Nykthos, hello. Look at the cards. Patrick, look at the cards.
Look at what I did.
Look at them. Take a long look. Take a screenshot. Look at them. Matti Kuisma wins game number 1 there over Michael Jacob. Oops, all spells very quickly up a game over Mono Green Planeswalkers. It's not going to take long, folks. This matchup is purely goal fishing. It's really combo on combo, or at least it certainly does feel that way. So these players will be sideboarding here a little bit. The conversation around this Oops All Spells deck, it's starting to really pick up. People feeling like this might be the best deck or one of the top tier decks in Pioneer.
I mean, there's a whole range of decks where your opponent has no response to what's going on. The deck is soft to some sideboard cards, but it is very powerful and very consistent. And in game ones, especially, just kind of across the board, are this deck's extremely strong.
Totally agree with you. It was kind of like a perfect game 1 deck, and I'm curious to see what the response is going to be in Magic for people to say, "Hey, I need to figure out a way to beat this thing."
I mean, I don't think the deck's very strong against counter spells.
Okay.
You don't have that many live cards, and you don't have that many discard spells to push through something. I would start there, but it's not like Pioneer is really flush with like the blue control stuff. It's much more about playing to the battlefield, rather than sitting back on this wall of counter spells and stopping everything your opponent does. So I'm not sure that the cards are there, but like I said, the deck does not seem very strong against counter spells, sort of broadly. So MJ's deck here, he plays with Karn the Great Creator. A lot of his sideboard is sort of priced in to just being targets for Karn. He does get to do a little bit of sideboarding in this matchup, because let's assume that Karn is always getting Grafdigger's Cage or Tormod's Crypt. There's no way I care about anything else.
Sure.
Are there cards in my sideboard that I would not get with Karn, but might be fine to draw naturally? For example, the Pithing Needle is a really good example of that. It maybe lines up the right way against Undercity Informer, and it's not something you would ever get with Karn. So bring it in, and maybe it does something if you draw it, and if not, it's probably not a big deal, because so much of your game plan is just finding Karn. The cards that are not Karn are all kind of interchangeable. Who really cares? Sure. I think he might have also brought in the Darksteel Citadel because he just wants to make sure that he hits his land drops and can deploy Karn as fast as possible.
Well, there's your Karn hand. That's turn 3.
Yeah, this is the hand that you want right here.
Right? Isn't that what the doctor ordered, as it were?
I mean, I can't imagine. It's 4 mana and Karn and the ability to play it on turn 3. So that's maybe you want to that's it. 10. You probably don't want to click on keep as fast as possible. You want to give sub. You don't want to give away the whole game. But
the Ravits, got it. The Ravits.
Yeah,
gotcha. Let's play pretend. So. Really, really just deep in the tank, and then here's the perfect hand.
Right. Make it seem like it's a really good hand with Oath of Nissa, not a really good hand with Karn.
I got you. Now there is a counter, insofar as there is a Thoughtseize over there, and there's a Hagra Mauling, an Undercity Informer. Now the problem, perhaps, is that the World Spine Worm is in the hand, but that might not be the end of the world, because you can Haunted Dead it back. Now I did catch, while I was looking at the sideboarding, and it may have changed. I may have missed it, but I believe that he did sideboard out one of the World Spine Worms.
Okay.
But World Spine Worm would go back onto. So you do your thing, upkeep, Haunted Dead. Discard World Spine Worm. Goes back into the deck. As long as I've got my cards right. And he's keeping, so it must be right. Llanowar Elves to kick it off. Another Llanowar Elves. Well, let's just get 2 more Knuckleheads out there and beatdowns. Gonna lose your Karn to a Thoughtseize. So gonna have to draw another one. Balagad Recovery of the draw. There is the TCs. Give me that Karn. Place that into the graveyard, please, and thank you.
Also very important that Matti now has the information that he can play the Informer and hope to untap.
Yep.
Because it would just get swallowed up by the Voracious Hydra.
Big, big. Big, 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 big. I guess, okay, so Voracious Hydra being big, big is important insofar as if we need to deal a lot of damage, and on the turn that they go off, they don't really block that well. So there is that.
Yeah, I mean, you typically pick up 12 life through the Creeping Chills, but otherwise you're just, your gloves are down besides that.
Yeah. So Big Big is an 8/9, I believe. Yeah. So next Big Big, which is codename for Voracious Hydra, of course, could also be an 8/9. Voracious Hydra does have trample. So, all right. They gain 12 in most circumstances. If you draw a Creeping Chill, you don't. What's the draw here for Jacob? Wolf, Willow, Haven. Don't think that matters a ton. Okay, so let's see. If we go Big Big again, make another 8/9. So here's your attack. Puts you down to 9. You're going to go down to 6 because you have to play a land untapped. You got to pay 3 life to do that because you don't play any lands in your deck. So you got to pay 3. So you're at 6. You gain 12, 18, and then attack you for 8, 16, 17, 18, 19.
And you presumably have a Narcomoeba to chump with?
You have a Narcomoeba and a Blade Trust, and you don't have a Blade Trust Spy because you're going Undercity Informer.
Yeah.
So I believe this should be enough for MJ to get the job done. Do a quick recount. Seagate Restoration untapped, fall down to 6. Undercity Informer, sack it, deck myself. 4 Creeping Chills, up to 18. I've got 1 blocker and a Narcomoeba. I attack with all my creatures. 16 of it is trample. So let's just call it 15 on the chump block. 16, 17, 18. Is that? I think that's exactly lethal.
Yeah,
I think that might be Xaxes.
Say this. The Uppsala Spells deck is definitely novel in a way.
It's cute.
Does not produce the richest games.
Not going to argue with you. Corey B, MTG, Corey Baumeister asking, doesn't Matti just win this turn? How would that happen? No way.
Apparently not, because he just
conceded. There's no haste or anything going on there.
So, no.
Yeah. It's going to be a hard no.
Hard no.
Like
Next up.
Like our friends at Letterkenny would say, hard no.
Compelling and rich.
We dabble in all of Magic's formats.
Yeah, for sure.
We dabble in them all. I guess. Okay, so let's look ahead a little bit. Let's look at a scotch ahead there, partner. We don't know what's going to happen here. MJ could win, and then match is over. Go and play against Logan Nettles. Matti Kuisma could win. If you're Matti Kuisma, do you want to play Modern or do you want to play Pioneer? You get to choose a higher seed.
I want to play Pioneer.
You want to do this again?
Do.
Okay.
It's not like MJ's just beat or whatever. There's a game to be played, but a lot of things need to go right for him to be able to win this matchup, I feel like.
Got it.
And also, you got to think about preserving your mental sharpness as well, the endurance. Playing another grindy Teamer versus Heliod match, exhausting. and you have Jabberwocky waiting for you. Should you get past that one, I want no decisions in my hand. Just
0 decisions, eh?
just not that interested.
Fair. I respect that.
Trying to live a post-decision life.
Let's take a look. Well, we got Carnage, so we're keeping that hand.
All right.
Other side of things.
This looks like a mulligan.
You got to send this one. You don't have enough mana.
All right, this one looks good, I guess.
Good enough for a 79 card deck. Let's see. You got to put one of these back. So probably a Balagad Recovery. You've got a turn 2 Accelerant and a Tangled Florahedron, or Who's a What's-Its, as I like to call it. And I mean, you got the combo. It's a little slow at the jump, but you got the combo. So you have what you're looking for. You don't have any disruption. You don't have any answers to Karn. So there is that, but I think you probably have to keep. Now, I guess it is worth noting that Matti is on the play. Is there any way to run perfect on the play here? It's not a turn. It's not a turn 3.
Well, it's land that enters the battlefield untapped, right? Is the turn 3?
Yeah, that's what we need. We need to peel. We need to spike one of the modal double face cards that ETB's untapped, or Eldritch Evolution. Or
and there's this weird sort of. I mean, so Matti's hand looks good, right? You would not consider mulliganing this under normal circumstances, but he already knows that MJ is keeping 7. Any hand that MJ is keeping 7 on the draw probably means turn 3 Karn. So your hand that combos out, implied combos out on turn 4 is no good. So now that MJ has kept 7, Matti might have to go digging for like a perfect 4 or 5 card hand to be able to beat the Karn ahead of schedule. Okay. It's just a little nuance of the mulligan rule. He knows that MJ's keeping 7 already, and so he's got to change his range here. He knows that he's got to basically present his best draw. A draw that's good but not great might not be good enough to keep here.
Okay, so if we keep this hand, we put again, I think we put Balagad Recovery on the bottom. He needs to draw an untapped land or Eldritch Evolution to be able to go off on turn 3. Neoform doesn't do it because you go get the 3 mana 1 and then you need a land to go off.
Yeah, I think I'm sending this one back.
Yeah.
It would be, I think that it's a weird, like, if this was just my 7 card hand and I didn't know anything about what was going on the other side, I think this hand's probably keepable. But now that you're armed with the information that MJ is keeping 7, you might just have to find something better. Even at the risk of a fail, even at the risk of mulliganing to 3 or 4 and just sort of dead ending, there's enough information that you have now that you probably feel like you need your best hand or close to it.
All right, so interesting question. One of the cards in Matti's hand is Palaka Predation, which is coercion. 3 mana, target opponent reveals their hand. You get to choose a card from it with converted mana cost 3 or greater. That player discards that card. So you can play that on turn 3 and then go off on turn 4. Right? You put Balagad Recovery on the bottom. You play turn 1. Let me make sure I get this right. You play turn 1 Balagad Recovery as a land. Actually, no, because you don't have a black source, so that's
right.
not going to work. Okay,
he needs that card. He needs that card as the swamp.
Yep.
So
okay, never mind.
I think you could be correct there. If there was another black source of mana, or if the accelerator was Sylvan Caryatid, but that's just like a critical piece just to get off the ground.
And the worst part about all this is, at worst maybe, best also maybe, is that the draw steps that Kuisma could have here are wild.
Oh yeah,
Freak Chill, Prized Amalgam, World Spine Worm.
Most of the draw steps are not cards. The best that he could hope for basically is a forest or a swamp. Just like an untapped land is like spiking.
Yeah.
All the other cards are no good.
Yeah. I think I'm with you. I think you send it. I think you send it. Because boy, some of these draw steps are a horror show. And it's not like you want to draw any more copies of Blade Trust Spy or Undercity Informer either. You already have it. Look at how deep we are in the tank. Deep. Gonna drill out the bottom of the tank. Remember, winner of this match goes on to the finals, wins $15,000 additional dollars, go from $15K to locking in at least $30K. First place gets $50K. Logan Nettles is waiting here. He's just twiddling his thumbs. He's thinking, come on, baby. You want to keep you on a mulligan, Matti Kuisma. What you want to do? You're going to lose to my Sultai pile of cards anyway, pal. Maybe. Unclear. I'm sure, Patrick, you're checking right now, and I can confirm for you. Yes, the Giants won. Okay.
No, actually,
put your phone down.
I'm actually being messaged by a member of Play Design
Okay.
asking, how do we know that MJ is keeping 7 cards? So I don't want to blow up anyone's spot, but I'm just explaining the London Mulligan rule. Your identity is safe.
Sealed.
I would never reveal it. I would never reveal
identity
it.
is safe with us.
But I'm actually texting a coworker right now about something germane to the match.
Big, if true.
Also, go Giants.
We keep, and we kept.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is okay. Well, we're getting a little frisky.
You can spike. This is a hand that can spike.
Is it?
Untapped land, and it's turn 3.
No. Neoform doesn't do it on its own. Neoform, you need 4 mana.
No, you go Paradise Druid, turn 3, tap Paradise Druid.
Oh yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, yep, you're right. My bad. Okay. So what do we got to spike here? You just got to spike untapped land?
Yeah, okay. Untapped land, and this can turn 3.
All right.
Got to do it. Oh, will you look at that? It's one of the many cards this deck plays.
Here we go. Here we go. Here we go, baby. Attack for 1. Nope.
Ah.
No.
Oh well.
Wow. Prepare for carnage. It's tough to have a tournament end like that.
No, it's not. You could have just played with some normal cards.
Tormod's
I mean, it's painful, right? I understand the stakes are high.
The drop steps are amazing.
Would you look at that?
Almost. For the Oops All Spells haters out there, they are loving it. That's it, folks. Michael Jacobs is going to win this game and match over Matti Kuisma. 2-1. He's moving on to the final.